Hi everybody, Jess Jurkovic here. A special edition of Dudley Simpson is Doctor Who project awaits you. For today I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to actually show you the process that I go through to transcribe the music that you've heard. I plan to do one brand new transcription before the end of my original cycle of transcription. So I'm going to add one more. And it's going to be from the Robots of Death, one of my absolute favorite stories. So I wouldn't have been grabbed by this music initially, or perhaps I would have been intimidated by the music initially. But upon second hearing or third hearing, I decided, let's go for it. And I can make something of it. I guess I was more inspired by the music I did from Genesis of the Daleks. So, what have I got here? Of course, I've got my keyboard here. You may recognize this space, of course, because this is where I recorded episodes 14 through 20 from March to July of 2020. This is where I do most of my work, do most of my practicing. Yeah, I don't have a real piano, maybe someday. Pencil. Sheet music to write on. There we go. On the back as well. I actually just printed this out from the internet. I've got my trusty laptop. This is actually relatively new. But what it has on it is a program called Audacity, which I've talked about a little bit before. Basically an audio software. Recently, I've directly recorded music from the program onto Audacity, basically like stripping the audio from the recorded program itself. So what I did was I recorded all of the music that I wanted to use. More specifically, I'm going to use music associated with the Sandminer, which starts right at the beginning of part 1, and we hear elements of it in part 2 and right until the beginning of part 3. I'm going to just start with the first few seconds of music that happens right at the beginning of the episode, and it sounds like this. It won't sound quite as full because it's being heard through my microphone, but it sounds like this.
Turbulent Center, Victor 7. Scan commencing now.
So you can hear one of the benefits of this particular piece of music is that there is no dialogue. The music is basically the focus. Though there is some sound effects of the machinery of the Sandminer and the atmosphere of the planet, so I'll have to push my way past that in some cases, maybe to figure out what's going on. But I'll give it a good try. So I would often use headphones to be able to hear the music as clearly as I can directly into my ears, or sometimes I use my AirPods and so on. But just so that you can hear what I'm doing, I'm going to use the speakers of this laptop, which are actually really quite good considering. First things first, got to start at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the top, and I'm going to isolate that first little and see if I can figure out what's going on, because it's basically just the crescendo sound of timpani and horns, I think. I do this a lot. I basically just loop it over and over again until I can hear it. And I poke around until I figure it out. Although, I have perfect pitch, so I can usually come pretty close pretty fast. No, it's not this. Because I think it resolves to B minor, I think. If I remember rightly. So I think it's something like... think it's something like that. Another thing that I can do, which I sometimes do, is I will take the music and stretch it out. I'll usually put it at about twice as slow, and what the program will do is it will maintain the pitch but stretch it out so I have longer to hear what's going on. This is especially important if something is very short or very quick and it disappears fast. I got to be able to hear it, so if I can isolate it and then stretch it out so it lasts longer, it's easier for me to digest what's happening. So let me do that. All right, that stretches out. You can sort of hear there's a little bit of wobble and distortion there, but it's pretty good. You know, I think that's all there is. I think it's just that. Now, there's a question of rhythm here. We're basically in 3/4 time, I know that. This is kind of one of Simpson's waltz macabre. I like to call them those. A waltz, you know, because it has that dancey type of rhythm to it, but it sounds sinister and evil. I've actually documented a few of those in the past. Well, just for lack of anything more creative, treble clef, bass clef, 2 staffs of the piano. I'll put 3, 4. I like to put just big time signatures so that I don't have to write them twice. Okay, so I know it's going to be, I'm pretty sure we're probably at 180 beats per minute, which is a measure of 1 second. So it's probably most of you know that by this time Simpson was basically writing at 120 beats per minute, 60 beats per minute, multiples of that. So this would be 180, 60 times 3, 3/4 time. So anyway, I don't necessarily have to write that down now, but I will write it down in the eventual score that I make. You've seen some of those in my videos too. All right, so this is probably something like 2 measures long. Let's see. Hear it again. 1, 2. Yeah, there's like a little break on 3 there. So, all right. So now I have to write that down, and I'll do, without being anything original, I'll just do like a little tremolo in the left hand for the timpani. I mean, I could do something like, but that doesn't sound as good, and it's not as easy to do technically, so. 9. Probably the low one first. Oh, nice eraser. What is it about erasers? If you don't use them very much, they like harden up and then blah, blah, blah. You'd think that these problems end after high school, but they don't. Something like that. The tremolo, sorry, there's an eraser mark there, so that's a little obscure. But the 2 notes alternating with each other rapidly, it's kind of that little barred notation that they do. Instead of having to write each individual note out, they came up with this shorthand for a tremolo. The problem with the horns is that they are crescendoing, and the piano won't do that. So unless I want to go, I don't think so. That's a bit much. So I'll just go, yeah, that's simplest. Okay. Which will sound da-da. Well, let's figure out what da-da is, shall we? Yeah, see? Especially in this first measure, you can sort of hear like something like that. Oh, that reminds me. There's like a synthesizer-y, organ-y type of thing which also joins at this point, and that's probably what I'm hearing. I could tell that there was more going on there, and I didn't notice that that bit had started already. It's like a counterpoint to the horns, and it's they sort of answer each other back and forth. Okay. The only question is, there are two horns there, basically. That's pretty common in Simpson's orchestration to have two horns. So the synthesizer has something like, right. It doesn't end in B minor, like it's not. No, it's sort of hollow. It's like just fifths or something. Something like that, I think. I do sometimes have to consider as I'm transcribing how I'm actually going to play it. And that sometimes has occasionally meant that I've had to decide how to integrate orchestrated music that can't be played by two hands of the size of my hands. So sometimes they have to be smushed together, or there are some parts that I've had to ignore and just leave out for the sake of a smooth piece. That may be happening here. Hope not. I don't want to jump to conclusions about what I'm hearing and then miss things. I've done it before. So, if you make too quick a decision about what's happening, you might close your mind to what's actually happening. So I listen for a long time. Yep, so I think the horns are playing in octaves now. They had started with, but then they split apart to do octaves, which is that really big sound there. It's very rich and full. Da-da, da-da-da-da. So that's all it is now. Obviously a little bit messy, but it doesn't have to be beautiful now. It'll be beautiful later when I plug it into the software. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, you can really sort of hear that, or something like that. I can't tell if it's or. I'll have to listen carefully, won't I? I don't hear something on the second beat. I hear bum, ba 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 bum. So I don't know how long that's going to be yet. Okay. So that's the ba 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 ba. I put down there in the left hand. And then there's also the organ part, which starts, and I'm going to have to figure out how to integrate that. Obviously, you can tell already that this was orchestrated for multiple instruments, not just for piano. And anybody, even a pianist like Simpson, who writes for other instruments, doesn't try to just play it on the piano and then give it to a whole bunch of instruments. That sounds like a pianist writing for other instruments. So that's why sometimes I have to kind of be creative and figure out exactly how I'm going to integrate music which doesn't fit neatly in two hands. It's part of the challenge of what I have to do. All right, anyway. However, as you see, a lot going on and a lot of noise on this track, which makes it very difficult to discern what's actually happening. And I could be missing things, but I can listen more. In fact, when I'm not recording with you, I'll probably have to listen again just to make sure, so that I can concentrate on just the one thing. Not that you're distracting me, not at all. Okay. Yeah, the organ's in fourths, so whatever. Yeah, it's something like that. Okay. You have to stop for a moment sometimes, because after a while you stop listening. So, all right. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning, today is March 7th, and according to my calendar, at this stage I've finished my revisions of the music for episodes 31, 32, and that's going to be recorded probably in about 2 weeks' time, but not going to come out until the 31st of March, because the Quiz of Rassilon is on the 28th, Sunday, and I didn't want to have a recording day on the Quiz of Rassilon day. So I'm actually recording a week before, which is nice. Many times lately I've been recording days before I have to put out the video, or at least that's my schedule. Not a problem, it just sometimes means I'm got a little bit of a crunch at the end. I can usually handle it, but it depends on how busy I am with work. So actually the music I'm working on right now isn't probably going to be recorded until the end of April or the beginning of May. So that's what's actually nice. I've got plenty of time to work on this, get it right, and put it all together. And I'm not in a hurry to do it, which is good. I might need it because there is actually a lot of Sandminer music. According to my the recording that I did, I recorded 6 minutes of Sandminer music, some of which is repeated actually, and that will help me transcribing some of the music that we heard at the beginning of the video. This is an interesting score in which the director, I think it's Michael Bryant, the director reused music rather than simply having a through-composed score, which is often how Simpson worked at this time. Was music wasn't, he might refer to his own music again, but the same recording was not used twice or multiple times in the same story. It can happen. Some directors obviously chose to do that, but it's nowhere near to the extent of like the War Games, where the same music is used over a dozen times over the course of 10 episodes. Yeah, it was a lot of episodes, but not a lot of music was written for that story. So this story is a little bit unusual in that there's some repetition of music reused. And someone out there, I'm sure, I've discovered that I'm either not willing or unable to do all the research needed to be totally accurate about things like that. But I know there are people out there who could say Simpson recorded this much music and not all of it was used. Actually, I may have found a source of that. It's the paperwork program as broadcast that I just rediscovered on the very old archived BBC Classic Doctor Who site. That's where I tried to find out who played the organ in the Pyramids of Mars, and they were wrong, or incomplete, rather. So anyway, I'm sure I was saying something very important. Okay, so I'm glad I have at least a month, 6 weeks to work on this music. Not that I'll necessarily need that long, but I'm not going to be able to work on it every day. So that's why I'm starting now. Oh, okay. Anyway, I think we were talking about music. Let's go back to music, shall we? So you can hear that I'm already starting to think of how to integrate the music. Yeah. That gets the job done, right? Yeah. Okay. So I might have to erase some of this stuff. Gone. Time for a proper eraser. Jeez. Ta-da. Little Phrygian sound there. We've heard a lot of Phrygian in Simpson, and I guess you can see why. It's pretty darn effective. Something like that. Do-do-do-do-do. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Okay. Da-da-da, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Alright. One doesn't want to think that one has bitten off more than one can chew. But, you know, I've made it work. It's sort of the uncertainty. But I have yet to abandon a transcription completely. It's always come back. So, let's carry on. So, what happens in the next measure? Okay, so let's go to that measure now. More fourths, I think. A lot of grandeur and I keep thinking of imperial. Oh, that doesn't seem too bad. I'm thinking the timpani is like driving its way through there. There's no reason why it would stop. It's obviously an important part is. I know it does that. I just haven't figured out yet where exactly. I think the B is probably a pedal. I think it just is there a lot of the time, but I know it moves later. Maybe we'll see. But articulation obviously important. Long, short, short. Yeah. Da 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 da. Shut up. Staccato, staccato. Slur there. Da da da. Okay. Awful. Messy, but who cares? No doubt these will be worth their weight in paper someday. Oh. Oh. Oh, maybe it is. You can hear that wretched Sandminer chugging away in the background, getting in the way of everything I want to hear. Yeah, there's like an organ chord that's there that was there the whole time, but you couldn't hear it until now. New staff line. But anyway, where was I? Come in. It's a neat little triplet there, I think. I think it's all fourths. If that's true, that will actually be very helpful, because then I'll just know that if I can hear a melody, I know it's harmonized in fourths. Many times synthesizer timbres, in my experience working with Dudley Simpson, they were set in a particular way. So you had augmented chords. You had you had like the stuff in the spacewalks, like all this parallel stuff, which was basically made by creating a timbre with particular overtones highlighted, and then playing a single note, and then all of the notes would show up. So instead of just going, it would go, and that was the entire timbre. That might be what's happening here. It was just a synthesized timbre, and this particular timbre is fourths. Okay, I think it is fourths. Thought for a second it might have been tritones, which also would have been in the style, of course. Yeah, that works, but I don't think it is. I think so. Yeah, that synthesizer, whatever part, is pretty cool. It's like a mastery, like vibrato kind of timbre. It's not just it's that whole part of the timbre is that built-in vibrato, which always happens. That sounds like that's what's being used here. Most of the notes are short, so you don't totally notice it, but there's a little vibrato wobble to them, I think. This is the sort of moment where I sort of want to take a break, clear my head. I think I will, actually.